Let me start with a truth that makes people uncomfortable. Most people don't fail with money because they're unlucky, undereducated, or born into the wrong family. They fail because they're impatient. They want results now, proof today, relief immediately. And impatience, especially with money, is far more dangerous than ignorance. I've watched it destroy perfectly intelligent people who had every opportunity to live secure, peaceful lives. If you're watching this and still searching for the fast way to get rich, the shortcut, the big break that finally fixes everything, I want you to pause for a moment, because that mindset, more than any market crash or recession, quietly puts your future at risk. It encourages decisions that feel exciting in the moment and devastating later. I never tried to get rich fast. I never chased speed. I never believed money was something you hunted. And that single decision saved me from mistakes that ruin people when they can least afford them. If you're anxious about your future, this lesson matters more than you think. I've been around markets for a very long time. I've seen booms that made people feel invincible and crashes that made them feel foolish. What surprised me most wasn't how much money people could make when things went well. It was how quickly they could give it back when fear or greed took over. The pattern is almost always the same. Someone feels behind. Maybe they didn't save enough early. Maybe life got in the way. Maybe they trusted the wrong advice. Whatever the reason, they wake up one day and realize time feels shorter than it used to. And instead of slowing down and protecting what they have, they speed up. They start taking risks they don't fully understand. They listen to confident voices that promise certainty. They buy things because everyone else seems to be making money doing it. And for a while, it works just enough to reinforce the behavior. That early success convinces them they're finally on the right track. Then comes the concentration, bigger bets, less margin for error, and eventually one bad decision wipes out years of careful effort. I've seen this happen to people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and even later. The age doesn't matter. The mindset does. Okay. If you're watching this with a knot in your stomach, wondering if you waited too long or made the wrong moves, you're not alone. I'm talking to people who feel the pressure of time and the fear of regret, and I'm telling you, speeding up is usually the worst response. Here's what I learned after decades of watching money move from the impatient to the patient. Wealth is not built by brilliance. It's built by survival. The goal isn't to make one extraordinary decision. It's to avoid a handful of terrible ones. Most fortunes aren't destroyed by a lack of opportunity. They're destroyed by a single moment of poor judgment. By the end of this video, you'll understand why chasing fast money creates fragile outcomes and why slow, deliberate thinking. You'll see that even if you feel late, calm, and discipline still give you a fighting chance. And more important, you'll learn how to stop letting urgency push you into mistakes you don't have time to recover from. Yeah. This isn't about getting rich quickly. It's about not getting poor permanently. Lesson E: I never confused activity with intelligence. Let me tell you something that disappoints people. Okay. I didn't make money because I was constantly doing something. I made money because I was willing to sit still when everyone else felt the need to act. Early on, I noticed that people equated motion with intelligence. If they were busy, they felt smart. If they were trading, adjusting, reacting, they felt in control. I watched investors spend entire days glued to screens, responding to every headline and every price movement. They sounded informed. They felt engaged. And over time, most of them underperformed the people who did almost nothing. Activity creates the illusion of control, not the reality of it. Markets don't reward motion. They reward judgment. And judgment often looks like patience from the outside. Doing nothing feels lazy. In reality, it's often the hardest thing to do. I learned early that every decision has a cost, even the small ones. Trading costs money, taxes cost money, stress costs clarity. And the more often you act, the more opportunities you give yourself to be wrong. The people who felt the most confident were often the most dangerous to themselves. Confidence encourages speed, speed encourages shortcuts, and shortcuts eventually find their price. The practical lesson here is simple. If you're constantly adjusting your portfolio, switching strategies, or reacting emotionally to market noise, ask yourself why. Are you improving your long-term outcome, or are you just trying to feel better in the short term? Calm rarely feels exciting, but it compounds beautifully over time. Okay. Lesson R. I respected time more than talent. People like to believe wealth is a reward for intelligence. They talk about IQ, education, access to information, or having some special insight others don't. I've met plenty of brilliant people in my life. Some of them became wealthy. Many didn't. Intelligence alone is not a reliable predictor of financial success. What mattered far more to me was time. Time is the one variable you can't negotiate with. It doesn't care how smart you are, how hard you work, or how badly you want results. It just moving. I understood early that compounding is not impressed by talent. It only responds to consistency and patience. I never asked my money to do something unnatural. I didn't demand quick results. I didn't force outcomes. I let time do the work that people try to replace with cleverness. Most people underestimate how powerful time can be because its effects are quiet at first. Nothing dramatic happens early on. That's why people abandon it. I watched investors abandon good plans because progress felt slow. They wanted proof that their strategy was working. They wanted reassurance, and when they didn't get it fast enough, they changed direction. Every reset cost them time, and time is the one thing you never get back. I treated time like a partner. I gave it room to work. I didn't interrupt it with panic or impatience. When you rush, you interrupt compounding. When you chase speed, you turn time against you. Here's the practical takeaway. Stop asking what will make money this year. That question pushes you toward speculation. Start asking what you can hold comfortably through uncertainty, boredom, and temporary disappointment. If you can't imagine holding something for 10 years, you probably shouldn't own it for 10 minutes. Time doesn't reward urgency. It rewards endurance. Lesson 10. I understood that risk feels safe right before it isn't. This lesson cost many people more than they'll ever admit. The most dangerous risks rarely feel dangerous. They feel reasonable. They feel justified. They feel necessary, especially when When someone believes they're running out of time, they start accepting risks they would have rejected earlier in life. I've seen this pattern repeatedly. Someone reaches a point where patience feels like surrender. They tell themselves they don't have the luxury of being conservative anymore. So they concentrate their investments. They chase higher returns. They stretch into areas they don't fully understand. And for a while, nothing bad happens. That's what makes it dangerous. The absence of pain creates confidence. Confidence invites bigger bets. Bigger bets reduce margin for error. Eventually, something goes wrong, and when it does, the damage is permanent. Risk doesn't care about your timeline. Losses don't reverse just because you needed the money to work. The market has no sympathy for urgency. It simply responds to exposure. I learned to respect the difference between volatility and risk. Volatility is noise. It feels uncomfortable, but it doesn't necessarily destroy you. Real risk and permanent loss is what you must avoid at all costs. Especially later in life, people often tell me they're willing to take more risk to make up for lost time. I tell them the opposite is true. The less time you have, the more you must protect what you've already built. One major mistake can undo decades of discipline. Here's the practical takeaway. If an investment only works if everything goes right, it's not an investment. It's a gamble. And gambles feel exciting precisely because they ignore downside. Always ask yourself what happens if you're wrong. If the answer scares you, walk away. And lesson C. I focused on not being stupid instead of trying to be brilliant. This is where people get disappointed. They want something impressive, a secret strategy, a sophisticated formula, something that makes them feel smarter than everyone else. I don't have that for you. I didn't get rich by being brilliant. I got rich by avoiding stupidity. I avoided things I didn't understand. I avoided leverage I couldn't control. I avoided situations where excitement replaced clarity. You know, most people don't lose money because they made one complicated mistake. They lose money because they made several simple ones repeatedly. They chased stories instead of businesses. They trusted confidence instead of evidence. They ignored obvious risks because the rewards looked attractive. I learned that avoiding obvious mistakes is far more powerful than chasing extraordinary wins. You don't need to hit home runs. You just need to stay in the game. Wealth grows quietly when you remove the behaviors that drain it. I also learned that saying I don't know is a strength. It keeps you out of trouble. People who feel the need to have an opinion about everything often feel the need to act on those opinions. Action without understanding is expensive. The market constantly offers opportunities to do something foolish. It invites speculation, leverage, and overconfidence. Resisting those invitations doesn't make headlines, but it preserves capital. And preservation is the foundation of growth. You know, here's the practical takeaway. Make a list of financial behaviors that have hurt you in the past: chasing trends, overtrading, ignoring fees, taking advice from people who aren't accountable for the outcome. Then stop repeating them. That alone will improve your results more than most advanced strategies ever will. Okay. You don't need to be smarter than everyone else. You just need to be disciplined enough not to sabotage yourself. Lesson Wove. I never tried to impress anyone. This lesson is quieter than the others, but it may be the most important. I never invested to look smart. I never cared whether people thought I was missing out. I didn't build my decisions around what would sound impressive in conversation or what would make me feel included. That may not sound like a financial principle, but it is one of the most expensive traps people fall into. Trying to impress others leads you into areas you don't fully understand. It encourages you to use language instead of logic. It pushes you toward complexity because complexity sounds sophisticated. And sophistication, when it's not earned, is dangerous. You know? I've watched people buy investments they couldn't explain simply because everyone around them seemed excited. They didn't want to feel left behind. They didn't want to look foolish. So they ignored their discomfort and trusted the crowd. Crowds are not designed to protect individuals. They're designed to amplify emotion. There is a cost to pretending you understand something when you don't. That cost usually shows up later when conditions change and confidence disappears. The market doesn't punish ignorance immediately. It waits until ignorance meets stress. I was comfortable being boring. I was comfortable saying no. I was comfortable letting other people chase excitement while I focused on durability. That comfort protected me from mistakes that come from ego rather than judgment. Here's the practical takeaway. If you wouldn't be comfortable explaining an investment to a skeptical friend without using buzzwords, you probably shouldn't own it. Clarity is not optional. It's a requirement. Myth-busting segment. Now let me clear up a few things you've probably been told. First myth. You need to take big risks to build meaningful wealth. That's wrong. You need to take risks you understand and avoid the ones that can permanently damage you. Big risks often pay off early and punish late. Wealth is not built by flirting with disaster. Second myth. Playing it safe means settling for average results. That's also wrong. Playing it safe means staying alive long enough for compounding to work. Average decisions made consistently over long periods often outperform heroic decisions made occasionally. Third myth, if you're behind, you have to be aggressive. That idea ruins people. Feeling behind creates urgency. Urgency creates bad decisions. The less time you have, the less room you have for error. Aggression late in the game doesn't fix past mistakes. It multiplies future ones. You've been taught to believe speed equals success. In reality, speed often equals fragility. The faster you try to go, the more exposed you become to things you can't control. And let me give you something simple you can remember. I call it slow, simple, durable. First, slow down. Any decision that feels urgent deserves extra skepticism. Urgency is rarely your friend when money is involved. Second, simplify. If your financial life feels complicated, that's a warning sign. Complexity hides risk. Simplicity exposes it. You should understand every major decision you've made. Third, favor durability over excitement. Ask which choices can survive bad years, not just good ones. Durability keeps you in the game. Fourth, protect capital first and seek growth second. Growth means nothing if it comes with the risk of permanent loss. Protection buys you time, and time buys you options. Fifth, let time do the heavy lifting. Compounding works quietly. It doesn't announce itself. It rewards consistency, not brilliance. This framework won't make you feel clever, but it will help you sleep at night. And sleep is underrated in financial success. I never tried to get rich fast. I never believed speed was a virtue. I never confused urgency with intelligence. That didn't make me special. It made me durable. Most people don't fail financially because they weren't smart enough. They fail because they couldn't wait. They let impatience push them into decisions their future selves would regret. If you take one thing from this, let it be this: wealth rewards patience far more reliably than it rewards brilliance. You don't need to win big. You need to avoid losing badly. Time can still be your ally, even now, but only if you stop fighting it. Slow down, simplify, protect what you've built. Let compounding work quietly in the background. And if you want more hard-earned lessons like this, without hype or sugarcoating, subscribe to the channel and stay with me. I've made plenty of mistakes, so you don't have to repeat them.